A rose by any other name. A rose by any other name. Jim Harrington.
What's in a name? That which we call a rose by any other name would smell so sweet. Daffodil. Dirt. Sewage. Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmaster, honored guests, William Shakespeare only got part of the picture. What else is in a name, you may ask? Perception. Perception is understanding based on sensory input. Take this rose. We can see the deep reds. We can smell the sweet fragrance. We can feel the soft, delicate petals. And if you're not careful, you'll feel the sharp, vicious thorns. But we have all of this sensory input that we can process and understand this rose. Yet, this too is a rose. It's a very different color, a different fragrance, and even a different feel. But the name rose applies to this too. We use a name, a simple word or phrase, to describe something. When we don't get the sensory input, we imagine it. Take me, for instance. I was known by a single simple name when I was in college. It didn't come from me being accepted while I was still a junior in high school. This name had no relationship to making and staying on Dean's List for all the time that I was there. Now, I was known as a hippie. Now, it could have had something to do with the long hair cascading down my back. Perhaps it was because I rarely wore a shirt or shoes. You know, that's about the time that restaurants started putting in the signs, no shirt, no shoes, no service. Well, let me tell you, for me, there's a very different meaning for the phrase, dress for dinner. Nowadays, you see a fat, middle-aged old man. You see it, unfortunately. But there's a lot more to describe me. For instance, people that work with me have seen my accomplishments in the chemical industry. They've seen elaborate, complex chemistry, plants with exotic equipment and materials required for manufacturing. Some of you may have tasted food that I prepared for events, and you know of my culinary skills. Some may have even heard me play piano. You know of my musical talent. I certainly hope that when you hear the name Jim, you will remember these things and not simply the one thing that you see when you look. Now let's evaluate another name. Most of you are familiar with Boy Scouts. Well, the pinnacle of achievement for a Boy Scout is Eagle Scout, something I never accomplished. I do know famous people who have done this, though. For instance, former President Gerald Ford was an Eagle Scout. He was always a proud spokesman for Boy Scouts. Another Eagle Scout was Dr. William DeVries. He was the first doctor to perform an artificial heart transplant. We may name him healer or even genius. We think of accomplished men like these when we hear the name Eagle Scout. But that's not all the Eagle Scouts. Some of you may remember back at UT, a man that climbed a tower and killed 14 people. Charles Whitman was an Eagle Scout too. The name applies to him. Now, why am I pointing out all of these incongruencies? It's because when we don't have enough or any sensory input, we use just the name to build information in our mind. We build it maybe based on our past experiences or how we were raised, but it's still just something that we build in our mind. When you hear a name like Arab, Muslim, Jew, Frenchman, if you build an image in your mind, remember, it is just your imagination. So be careful about this when you hear it. Remember Mr. Shakespeare's lesson. What you hear in the name doesn't affect the true nature of the person or the thing. And if you've built an image just by hearing this name, it's just your imagination. It's only in your mind. Next time you hear the name Rose, if you don't see it, smell it, or feel it, what is in a name? Madam Toastmaster.